Thank you. Recording in progress. We are recording this. Noted now. If for any reason later you have a question and you're not being comfortable on the video, you can always type that into the chat and we can share it anonymously too. So heads up on that. Everybody, I think everybody's been here before except for maybe Marissa. So just a brief overview of Imaginarium. We are a nonprofit and an initiative of Faith and Culture Center. We exist to ultimately imagine a better world and then intentionally make it so. Figuring out how we do that as individuals and as a community and together as a human family is our priority. We believe deeply in the values that every living thing has inherent magic or worth, that every living thing is inherently connected. That means connected to ourselves, connected to each other, the human family, and the natural world around us. And finally, and equally, that we are inherently responsible, figuring out how we are continuing to be responsible to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us. So inherently magical, connected, and responsible. That's who we are. We gather like this about once a month at this point. We're about to attempt to have our first in-person gathering again next month. We'll talk about that at the end, but we've been doing this virtually now, and I'm just so grateful for every time any one of us shows up in this space. We're so honored to have you. And we do some practices together to kick off our time every time. And these are practices to center us, to ground us, and to remind us of those values. So I'm going to pass it off to Leah. I think her mic is working. If it's not, then I can lead it, but try, Leah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, amazing.
Cool. So we start off with a naming practice. So where you share your name, where you're calling from, if you feel comfortable, and your pronouns, if you feel comfortable. This is just a chance to, first off, know who's here. Reminder to speak up. If you're normally quiet, we really value everyone's voice and want everyone to participate. And if you tend to talk a lot, it's a reminder to give everyone else a chance to talk as well. So I'll start, and then we'll just go through one by one and I'll call out your name as it appears on the screen. And then if you have access to audio, you can introduce yourself or type it through the chat if you feel more comfortable. So I'll start. My name is Leah. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee, and my pronouns are she, her. Melissa.
Melissa Green. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am in Franklin, Tennessee.
Thanks. Nathan.
Nathan, I live in Nashville, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Matt Carr.
Matt Carr, I'm in Huntington, West Virginia, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Awesome. Sarah Amick.
I'm Sarah, and I go by she, her, hers, and I'm from East Nashville.
Cool. Malia.
Hi, I'm Leah Carden. I'm in Brentwood, Tennessee, and I use she, her, hers pronouns.
Awesome. Alan.
Hello, I'm Alan, and I am from the sweltering state, well, city of Houston, Texas. And my pronouns are any for now. My pronouns are any for now.
Okay, awesome. Meg.
So that's Meg's our kid who set up Linda's computer. So I'll just go. I'm Chris Hauser from Brentwood. Linda is on the other computer doing some craft work and listening in. And so I'm he, him, his. Linda, my wife, does not care about pronouns. Everything's cool. So we say hello.
Cool. Doug.
Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Day from Franklin, Tennessee. He, him, his. And I'm sorry I'm looking so sunburnt. I realize I am very red here today. I've been outside all day working. Sorry about that.
Good. Let's see who is next. Is it Sunita?
I'm Sunika. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, where there's a storm, and it's she, her, hers.
Awesome. Marissa?
Hi, you guys. I'm Marissa Gassel. I am currently residing in Franklin, Tennessee, and I am she, her, hers.
Cool. Is that everybody? Did I miss anybody? Well, all right. I will send it back to, I always forget who comes next. I'm sorry, y'all. Melissa, do you know what?
Malia has it next.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Malia.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Tell Me Something Good portion of our time together where we name the good in the world. We know that there's a whole lot of not good right now, suffering and pain and things, but we try to be intentional and name the good in our lives and celebrate that. Pause and notice, like the graphic says. So we have a theme song. Everybody will unmute and we will all sing it at the same time. So ready? I hate leading this. Melissa, you start.
I think I should start because I don't know it.
Good.
There it was.
Okay. Oh, no, I was kidding.
Beautiful chaos. I love it.
Love it. All right. Raise your hand and I'll call on you if you have something good to share. Melissa.
I went to my first concert in 2 years last night. Shoshana Bean, who is an incredible literal force of artistic like brilliance. It was at TPAC, which is our performing arts center here in Tennessee, but it was cabaret style. Everything was on the stage. So you're actually the grand piano and hers here, and then all the seats are behind her of the theater. And so everyone else is in like socially distanced tables. So it's very intimate, very small. She was brilliant. I said it on my Instagram story last night that it made me feel like I could breathe again being in the presence of music and art. And it was so good. Sunita's asking what happened to the song. We just let it real quickly. No one really, it was just the catchphrase. They just all do the tell me something good. That's the gist of it. And we were funny about it. We should have better clarified that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's my good. It was so good. It was only an hour long. It left me wanting more, but I just feel invigorated and inspired today by being in the presence of art.
Excellent. Excellent. Who else? Chris.
We do Linda and I do a Zoom every Sunday afternoon at 2:30 with my parents. They're elderly in upstate New York in the home that I grew up in. And today is their 82nd wedding anniversary. Sorry. Wait. No, that is true. Yes, that's right. 82nd. Yeah. Or 81st. 81st. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm all practiced up on this. I know exactly what 81 years. 82 years. COVID, I lost a COVID year last year. So, huh?
But we're all thinking they were 10 when they got married.
No, 62. Linda's yelling from the other room. Unbelievable. I feel 82. That's what I feel right now. Unbelievable.
I'm like trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, Chris, 82. Wow.
So dumb. So anyway,
62 is amazing. That's amazing.
My brother got on the Zoom, and my sister and her husband, and then Mac, our son, got on as well. And it was just great to look at everybody for an hour. And I was with them about just over a month ago in upstate New York, and that was really, really wonderful to be with them as well. So thankful. Thank you. I'm going to go get some math courses, you know.
Who else has something good? Matt.
I guess mine has been like the past 6 months or so have really been a transition for me. I'm pending exiting the National Guard medically for medical reasons. So I was no longer able to work for them on a full-time basis as I had been. So now I'm actually doing like call center work, but it's just customer service, no sales or anything. And I've done that world before. Like I've had, several related jobs in that. But it's interesting, as I've heard Melissa say, her exiting kind of the church and everything, like I lost a bunch of money, but it's real peaceful. That's kind of where I am now in my own journey. It's just been, it's been great. Like literally I make like 60% of what I did. So I had to kind of, shift some things around, cancel some subscriptions here and there. But I've received like 11 or 12 consecutive 100% QAs on calls I've had like over the past month. So it's been pretty awesome in that respect.
That's great, Matt. I love hearing that. I love that you're more at peace now. I know things were really bad for you earlier this year. So it makes me happy to hear that you're in a better place now. Who else has something?
I can go.
Yes.
My wife and I have had our house on the market for about 2.5 months, and it's finally under contract. So yay!
That's so exciting.
Yes.
I know that's also a load off your shoulders.
It is a massive load off my shoulders.
Yes. Okay, Alan.
Okay, so I went to my audition last week, and well, I went in, and so I went in. I took my mask off because I was to sing my song. Oh no, we need you to sing with the mask on. And so I put my mask on, and probably with about at least I would say about 60% of diaphragm power because my nose was blocked. I attempted to sing a song, but luckily I picked one that was well in my range that I didn't have to go into too much head voice or anything. And so I nailed that, but I didn't get in because I was too slow. I had never sight read before and things like that. So, but I was officially by the board of the Houston Show Choir deemed a singer. Because I got 100% on my solo. Everything was on point, all that, and they loved it. So the only reason I didn't get in is because they decreased to only 2 of each part, like first alto, first soprano, first tenor, second tenor. There were only like 10 people in the choir because of COVID. So that's the reason I didn't get in, was because of the numbers. But yeah, at least I know I can sing.
Yes. Very proud of you for doing that audition, Alan. Very brave. Hey, Randy, welcome. Do you have something good to tell us?
Well, I'm here. Well, listen, while I do have the floor, I do want to say to all of you that reached out to me during my father's passing and the flowers and stuff that was sent, thank you very much. It was greatly appreciated. I love you all, and I appreciate the thoughts.
Of course. Does anybody else have anything to share?
Well, I do.
Yes, please.
Honestly, just in terms of not so good, we'll get to that. But just the overwhelming response the organization has received in terms of messages, offers of volunteering, donations from all around the world, community, sort of the Afghan community that's like really traumatized and scared and coming together to be there for, what we hope will be thousands of refugees. Just every bit of it, the human outpouring of concern and love is truly overwhelming. We've never seen anything like it. And it's a shame that it takes a crisis, but at least in a moment like this, people show up, and being here with all of you is part of all of that. And really, really happy to be with all of you. And my youngest son is 14 tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday to him. 14. We're so glad you're here today. Well, I will go if nobody else has. A lot of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, I announced earlier this week that I am starting my own business. I'm going to be doing a bakery out of my home. It's very exciting and very overwhelming and scary, but it's good. So it's good. All right.
Me.
It's you.
I think it's me. Yeah.
It is. Handing it off to Sarah.
Another practice we do at Imaginarium is a land acknowledgement. And so we want to take a moment just to acknowledge the land that we are on, to acknowledge the erasure of the indigenous peoples of this land. And we know that by doing so, it's a beginning to heal ourselves and imagine a world in which a better world. And so today, if you're in Nashville, we acknowledge the Cherokee and the Shawnee. If you're in West Virginia, we acknowledge the Adena and Hopewell, as well as the Shawnee. And then in Brooklyn, we acknowledge the Munsee, Lenape, and the Canarsie people. And just as we're about a month away from fall, and just to notice in this heat, to notice the sun, I sit in the same place pretty much every morning, and I've just noticed how the sun is shifting, and just that caused me to think about what else is shifting around me and what other colors are starting to emerge or maybe die or fall away, which then sent me inward and thinking about the things that are falling away as summer heats up, but also fall is coming and cooler temperatures and what that will bring. So just to encourage you to reflect on that as well.
Nathan, you're up.
Okay, I thought it was me, but yeah. So each time that we formally gather, we include acknowledgements as part of our spiritual practices. And Sarah just did the land acknowledgement, and the other ones that we focus on is our anti-racism, commitment as well. And as we set aside the time for these, the main focus, right, is for us to recognize that this is merely the beginning of our collective work, not the end. So with that, the commitment says is we as a community recognize that white supremacy and systemic racism are an insidious part of our society. We recognize the harmful impact of its presence in our lives and the impact it has on Asian American, Pacific Islander, Black, Indigenous, people of color members of this community and other communities around us. We commit ourselves to an active practice of anti-racism. We commit to uprooting and addressing racism whenever and wherever we find it, starting within each of us and extending into our communities and the greater world around us. And I believe I hand it back to Chris.
Yep. Okay, you guys, we're going to take a moment, dial down, and center ourselves. And we're going to put our hands together flat so that your fingers are touching. And while we prepare for this, let's close our eyes if you can have both feet on the floor. Let's take a deep breath in. Let it out. We'll tap each set of fingers slowly. And as we do, we'll say, stop, breathe, know your worth. Let's begin now, starting at the thumb. Stop, breathe, know your worth. Again, stop, breathe, know your worth. Let's give it one more time. Stop, breathe, know your worth. Thank you.
Thank you so much to each of you for leading us through those practices. They're such an important part of what we do. And we hope that you can utilize those in your day-to-day life as well. Well, earlier this week, as I'm sure many of you or over the past couple of weeks, just feeling overwhelmed with the amount of news there is coming out of Afghanistan, and trying to best understand this ongoing crisis and figure out how to help and how to support. And as always, if you followed Imaginarium for a while, we typically, when things like this start to happen, we begin posting and trying to support other orgs or people that are on the ground doing this work. And so I was researching, and I reached out to Ben, my husband, who's the Chief Development Officer for Charity Water, which is based in New York, to see if his team knew of anybody that was doing work here. And I immediately got a text back. One of his team members says, you need to look at Women for Afghan Women. So he sent me the link, and I was just blown away by their work and by their vision. It's a predominantly Muslim and Afghan run organization who clearly has a heart for people and is working towards creating a better world, and has been for 20 years, y'all. So it's a grassroots civil society organization dedicated to protecting and promoting the rights of disenfranchised Afghan women and girls in Afghanistan and New York. In particular, they work to help Afghan women and girls exercise their rights to pursue their individual potential to self-determination and to representation in all areas of life: political, social, cultural, and economic. They relentlessly advocate for women's rights and challenge the norms that underpin gender-based violence to influence attitudes and bring about change. So blown away, decided we do social media pushes about them. And then on a whim late the other night, I just went to find if there was a contact on their website and sent a quick email just explaining a little bit about who we are, and to see if they happen to have a spokesperson that would be available to come on today and talk to us and teach us and inform us and talk with us. And they immediately responded. Literally by the next morning when I woke up, they had responded and connected us to Sunita, who is the co-founder and co-chair of the board for Women for Afghan Women. So I've asked her to take some time to share about her own personal story, about this organization and the work that they do, and about this crisis. I want to challenge us. There will be time for questions and comments and some dialogue at the end. But as I mentioned, please take notes here. And I want to challenge us to do some deep listening, right? So not just habitual listening where we're reconfirming things we already think and know, but deep listening where we're trying to pay attention to what is most surprising, what is most curious, what's most unexpected, right? And also to try to listen empathetically, where we're literally trying to hear the broader perspectives that are unlike most of our white, right? Our white privileged perspectives. So we're so honored, Sunita, that you're here. Thank you for taking the time. She's informed us a few minutes ago that she's just been the spokesperson sort of for this org, and she'll probably explain why. And so we know you're very busy and I'm sure tired. And so we're just so honored to have you, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
There we go. I was saying thank you, Melissa. It's really a pleasure. And the breathing that we just did, thank you for that, because I realize I haven't done anything like that since August 15th. So it really hit in a deep place. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you, right now, our priority is safety of our folks in Afghanistan. And so, I'll, as I speak, you'll understand that right now the organization cannot make political statements. And so all of us are very opinionated people that have a lot to say about the Taliban and what's happening in Afghanistan, and our own sort of rationales for why we're here and what went wrong. But we really, like, the reason that I'm speaking and the rest of our folks are quiet right now is that it's really, really important that right now we focus on the urgency, our response to this situation, and that's taking all of our resources, energy, capacity, but also saying the wrong thing could literally risk lives right now. And so, yeah, so I've taken on the role right now of being the spokesperson. But I hope that soon I will be able to invite one of my Afghan sisters to Imaginarium, and you will hear from somebody either in Afghanistan or in Queens. I really hope so. And it sounds like y'all are a spiritual group too, and me too. And so what's getting me through this time is faith. and what's getting our organization through. I mean, it was only a kind of audacious, faithful thinking that even led us to start Women for Afghan Women and keep us going over 20 years. So now more than ever, that's what we're tapping into. But if we ever sort of let go of that anchor of our faith and our audacity of our hope, then it looks very, very grim. But somehow we're managing to navigate this with some positive energy, which, yeah, some people that we talk to are quite kind of surprised by. So I'm going to tell you the story as, you know, I mean, there's so many stories to tell, but I want you to understand where this organization came from and who we are, and then talk about this moment that we're in. I'm one of the co-founders, and 22 years ago, I was working at a women's foundation, a grassroots women's foundation. It's called the Sister Fund. It still exists, but in a very different form. And the foundation, actually, you might be interested, it's the private foundation of Helen Kelly Hunt, who is an extremely visionary philanthropist and also a Christian theologian too, and one of the real mentors and visions in my inspirations in my life. So I was working there, and Taliban had taken over Afghanistan the first time, and I felt very, very I felt the need to do something about it. And you know, if you were a baker, and I think we have a baker here, or an almost baker here, you bake bread. So I was working in a foundation, and so I wanted to find an amazing group of Afghan women to give a grant to. It's like, that's what I could do. Everybody can do something. That's what I could do. And so over the years of 2000 to early 2001, I was searching high and low in New York City, where everybody is. So there has to be a group of Afghan women. And so I found Afghan sisters, young women. I was young then too. And we went to universities to go to professors who were teaching about the region to say, who are your Afghan students? We met with folks from Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. Slowly but surely, we had a regular group of people that were meeting in my foundation's conference room. And we were going to Flushing and Fresh Meadows, Queens, where the Afghan community was and is, and meeting community women and asking them, you know, what do you think about what's happening in the country? What's happening here in the community in Queens? We're a women's organization no, at that time, we weren't even a women's organization. We wanted to find the group. And we were asking them, is there a group? What do you know, just what do you think? It was like a very informal needs assessment. And over the course of the year, the meetings and the people who were coming to them were very regular. And then we were going to Queens for regular meetings with community women. And by early 2000, this idea was forming. And by April 2001, we decided that whatever we were, that was the organization. There wasn't another organization of the kind that we wanted, because we formed Women for Afghan Women in April 2001. We found our name. We started the process to incorporate, and we had two major pillars. The one that first brought us together was the need to advocate for human rights of the men, women, children in Afghanistan who were under Taliban rule, facing the worst atrocities we had ever heard of. And you all know what I'm talking about, life under the Taliban in the 90s. So that was definitely the major reason for us gathering. But I and others, a few others in this group that was this nascent group, had a real commitment to grassroots work. And given that we were in New York, and given that we made this very meaningful connection with the community in New York, and given that some of the women who were joining us in this group, they were from Queens, their families were there, we were making these bonds. And I didn't want to do advocacy for Afghanistan without connecting it to this community. So the other pillar was a commitment to grassroots work, only having advocacy messages that came from the community. And that's who we're talking about. It's the the community in Queens, it's their families back home. It's their home before this home. So those two pillars were, that's how we were founded, and that those continue to be our, you know, that's who we are even till, oh, someone's calling me, I'm sorry. That those are our priorities even today, 20 years on. So, so in those early days, we started with the Queens Community Center, and it exists today. It is a vibrant, and it's like a lifeline for the community. And a moment like this tells us just how important it is in the community. So the Queens Community Center was our first program that we started, and we built it based on what we heard from the women from Queens. For instance, I'll tell you, we used to meet and in an Afghan library that used to exist, and it doesn't exist anymore, but we used to gather there. And at that time, there are 4 or 5 Afghan imams that we were meeting with and talking to about the organization we wanted to start. And one of them said we could have their space for free in the basement because it wasn't being used. So we went to the community women that we were meeting with to say, hey, we have free space. And the women told us, no, we are devout Muslim and we go to that mosque to pray, and that's fine. But this is our organization and it needs to be in a separate place from the mosque. And those of us who were the volunteers getting all this going, we were like, free space, but we listened to our women from the community, and we've done that every step of the way. So Manisha Naderi was a woman who came to us as a volunteer and built up that Queens Community Center, became our founding executive director. And in the year 2004, she came to the board to say, this work is amazing, but I want to take this work to Afghanistan. Are you with me, or shall I find, you know, shall I do it some other way? I'm sure I can find funding. I'm sure I can do this. And so the board, and I was part of the board, said, of course, we're with you. Your vision has brought us this far, and let's go. So Manisha went to Afghanistan in 2004 and did a needs assessment, another informal needs assessment. She sat in the Ministry of Women's Affairs and met. We made lists of people for her to meet. By then, we were 3-4 years old, and we had so many high-level contacts and grassroots contacts in Afghanistan. And we had made a trip to Afghanistan where we really saw with our own eyes. Manisha was with us, where we saw with our own eyes, you know, what the situation was, what the needs of women and children were, and what resonated with us and what we wanted to do. She was with us on our trip, and out of that experience, that was in 2003 when we all went, she had ideas. She thought she would start shelters, but the needs assessment, where she spoke to politicians, religious leaders, just women, teachers, police, she spoke to as many people as she could, and we had a list of questions for her to ask. What came out of that needs assessment was that shelters are fine, shelters are perhaps necessary, but they won't work on their own. We needed a way of doing work that was really of the community, respectful of the traditions of the community. We'd already been doing this in Queens too. So working in Queens for a few years, we knew that if we didn't speak and invite people into a space that was very respectful of the community's traditions and religion and so forth, women wouldn't come, people wouldn't come, and people wouldn't even come and work for us. It came as part of being a grassroots organization that this is what we needed to do. And so it was not a surprise when what we learned from the needs assessment in Afghanistan is that we needed a more holistic way of doing the work. And so out of that needs assessment came this model of the Family Guidance Center. So we started the first Family Guidance Center in 2005, and it's an open location center with caseworkers, counselors, and lawyers. And any person who comes with the criteria was that you had to have a human rights violation. We would then work with that person, most often a woman, but sometimes a man, and put a team of people around that person and their case. And the team from staff would be whatever. If they needed a lawyer, otherwise a caseworker, otherwise a counselor, a mediator. We had, you know, depending on what the story was. But the person, the woman most often, would bring her circle together. and of who needed to come together to brainstorm and solve her issue. So if it was domestic violence, it might be her husband, her kids, if they're grown-up kids, her parents, her in-laws, her grandparents, somebody that the husband would respect should be in the circle, maybe an imam. So she would bring her circle together, we would add our team. And then it would be what is today called reformative justice. We would have this process to figure out what's going on. We had in our office male counselors to work with men. And I've worked on domestic violence in this country. It's really hard to get somebody who's been, perpetrating the domestic violence to go into counseling. It's really hard. I mean, sometimes you have to, the court has to mandate it. Well, in Afghanistan, I wouldn't have predicted this, but pretty much all the men welcomed the opportunity to go and talk to somebody about what was happening. Like nobody had ever said, how are you doing? What's up? What's wrong? How can we help you? And tell us, just speak. And, on the day that men would go because we would do it on different days so that, everybody would be comfortable, the women would be comfortable. On the days when men would come for their counseling, the men would be lined up around the block, basically, and chatting with each other in line openly about, openly about what was going on. And then they would go into their private session. So something about the way that we were doing this work it just earned us trust of the community, trust of the different mechanisms, whether it's Human Rights Commission, Ministry of Women's Affairs. Something was working. And so we went from one province over the years, slowly to 14 provinces. That's how many provinces we work in now. And then we developed also, and there's another project I have to mention, which is the Children's Support Centers, my favorite project. In 2003, when we were in Afghanistan, we went to the women's prisons in Kandahar and Kabul. And what we saw many things, many of them, all of them disturbing. But the thing that really weighed on our hearts the most was that when women when they're arrested, their kids go with them to prison. And so we saw kids in prison without, other than the tiny ones for whom there was like daycare, there was no school. And it just, we especially Manisha, but we just couldn't get that out of our minds. And once we started working in Afghanistan, it was a goal to do something about those kids. And the other thing was that women had a ration for food when they were in prison. And if you had no children or 5 children, it was the same ration. So we just had to, do something about this. And it took us from 2004, when we started like brainstorming what could we do, till 2009 when we opened the first Children's Support Center. And by now we have 4 Children's Support Centers around the country, and they are for the kids whose moms are in prison. And with the 4 of them, we have capacity for all. There was like a total of about 500, 600 kids total. So it wasn't a completely, the number wasn't so big that we couldn't address the need. But with these 4 centers around the country, we could address the total need and take every kid out of prison. And the centers had counseling, because trauma counseling and everything that you would want in a place for kids, games and festivals and celebrations. And then we had education. Education was the main thing. Many of the kids who came, they hadn't been to school, or they had a rupture in their education. And so we had this accelerated program to get kids ready for school. And it was, I don't know, I didn't make that, our staff did. It was really so successful that every kid that came within months was ready to go to school. And then the vast majority of them topped their class. So that's the Children's Support Center. It's the New Yorker called it an oasis in a conflict zone. Really beautiful place. So that's the work we were doing. On the US side, the Queens Community Center just deepened, and 20 years, our oldest program, has really earned the trust of the Queens community, which is very conservative. And so now I'm gonna fast forward till this moment. And this is not a shock. What we're in right now is something that anybody who's following Afghanistan would not be shocked by. Something has been brewing for 5 years plus. And it could, what would happen with the increasing talk of US drawdown of troops and then, withdrawal of troops. There were several scenarios that could have been possible. There could have been a civil war, that could have been partial, like Taliban could be part of the government that is, or something like what we have now, which is a total Taliban takeover of the country. There's still one place, Panjshir, that's resisting, and I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's very small, and the Taliban takeover is pretty complete. But let's watch the news and see what happens. So right now, this is the situation we're in. It is reality, and there's really, I mean, our expertise is how to take care of women in crisis. The politics and the socioeconomic political sort of situation isn't like our area of expertise, but we are trying to figure out what our role is at this moment. So the two main priorities since, but I should also mention that in the last few months, in the last, say, 2 months, there has been fighting all across the country, and we have evacuated our staff and clients out of the provinces to Kabul. We have 1,200 staff, and we serve tens of thousands of women every year. And we have at any given time, usually perhaps around 1,000 women and kids in our care around the country, in our various residences and shelters. So we're a big operation where our infrastructure is so large that we get a lot of the vast majority of the people that we serve. We do something like the process that I just explained, which is more conflict resolution, and women can go stay in their homes. But we do, because we're the largest organization, we get the most extreme cases as well, that we have to keep safe. And if we don't keep them with us, then they're dead, basically. So we've been evacuating from all the provinces to Kabul over the last 2 months. And we didn't know if Kabul would fall. We thought it might, but we didn't think it would happen so quickly. So on August 15th, Kabul was taken over, and we had perhaps 400 or so of our folks still with us in Kabul, and some on their way. A lot of our staff and clients have gone underground. They've gone and integrated with either their families or somewhere. We're in touch with staff, a lot of staff who aren't with us, but at this point we have 500 people, and the people who are with us, surprise, surprise, are the highest risk of our staff and our clients. And our top priority is to get them out. And we have been working night and day to get them on. We're working with the US State Department. They are our largest funder. And they have a huge responsibility. They feel a huge responsibility to these people. And they've been working on a 24-hour shift where people take over from other people and working with us. And it's really moving. They're also emotional and really trying their best, but it's been 7 days and our plane for our people hasn't materialized, but everybody's working super hard on it. We're also working with the UK to see if a plane is possible. I'm from India. I'm working with India to see if a plane is possible. We're just trying, and we're also thinking, if the money that we've raised so far is enough to charter a flight. We're thinking about every, obvious and out of the box solution for this high risk group. And then once we know if we're getting them out or not, or once we know what the immediate future holds, we'll be able to assess whether we can work in Afghanistan, who's left, who got to leave, and who in our staff is left in Afghanistan, what work that we do is still permissible in this new Afghanistan. All of that is to be assessed, in the near future. But right now the focus is still on getting our people out. And on the US side, the morale is very low because our community, is really just the idea. Everybody who's here, pretty much everybody fled the Taliban, and now the Taliban is back in government. So everybody is just going back, flashbacks to past traumas, people's parents killed in front of their eyes, fleeing across the world to Pakistan, and somehow through some arduous, horrific journey, making it to a place like this where they're living, and and so far away. And there's of course a kind of a guilt, a survivor's guilt for not being there and being here. And so the mental health trauma of our community right now. I can't, you know, overstate it. But the organization and our amazing staff are readying the Queen's office. We just have it's like one small center. And over all of these years, it has been responding to crisis around the country, around the world, because if you're from Afghanistan, you're a woman, you're in Virginia, you're in California, you're in Texas, you're in Toronto, you're in London. If you're in crisis, if you're like fleeing domestic violence, for instance, that's the number one reason that we deal with crisis. You will look up, who can I go to for help? And pretty much the only, or let's say one of the only women's organizations you'll find, which is by Afghan women, for Afghan women, is us. And so our little office and our little staff actually does shelter placements around the country and even in other parts of the world. So right now, and they've also over the 20 years done a lot of welcoming of refugees, and they've done asylum applications. So we've been doing this work, but right now the priority is to kind of gear up and build capacity in Queens to, you know, welcome and reintegrate and resettle hopefully thousands of people that will arrive. And something like 3,000 have already arrived in Virginia. And a few of those families are going to make their way to Queens. I've just been getting an update from our leader in the US, Nahid. She's told us that a few families are on their way to Queens. And then in Virginia, there is a big Afghan community. It's even bigger than the community in New York. And our leader, Nahid, has been coordinating and leading the phone calls of the Afghan community in Virginia to kind of organize in that area for receiving the incoming refugees. And so we are making the plans for opening a Women for Afghan Women Virginia. There'll be a fundraising plan for it. There'll be, you know, basically our Queens Community Center can be, we've done it, we know it. We just need to replicate it in Virginia because there's a community there that needs all the same services. And then that's where all the refugees coming in right now are coming in, and then they'll be sent to different parts of the country. So that's two priorities: Afghanistan, getting our people to safety, and America gearing up for refugee resettlement. And that's the moment we're in. In the near future, we will know questions like, what is the new Afghanistan like? Are the promises that the Taliban are making, are they true? I don't know, I hope so. You know, how could I know? If the promises that they're making are true, there's a chance that we can continue our work. We don't know about that. But what we do know is that whether we can have boots on the ground in Afghanistan or not, and we really, really hope we can, the pledge is there to one way, shape, or form be there for the women and the people of Afghanistan.
Wow, Sunita, so much. Thank you. First of all, thank you for taking the time to honor us with that parts of your story and this work story. And I'm just so deeply moved again by the 20-year literal hard work you and this work continue to do. So just thank you for one. Two, I want to open this up. I took 4 pages of notes. I'm a note taker. So I know people probably have thoughts or questions or concerns, and I know everyone hopefully is also going to ask or want to know, like, what is the best way to begin to help and support you all? And maybe my other initial question in general would be, do you feel like there's one misconception about this crisis or this work that you feel like is common and you wish people knew? I think that's where I'd like to begin. And then let's open the floor to everybody else too.
So a misconception and a related point. I've been talking to journalists since August 15th, and I'm the only one doing that. And a number of them have quoted to me this Taliban line about they will respect women's rights, but only within Islam. That's their statement. And then the journalist will say it to me as to say, you know, but that Sharia law, Islam can be interpreted so many different ways. Does this concern you? What do you think? And I'm not giving political statements, but what I can say is that we've worked in Afghanistan for 15 plus years, And the Afghanistan that of the last 20 years, it's been an Islamic republic. It's been an Islamic country. So in Queens, we have a half-time staff attorney working on immigration issues and other issues. In Afghanistan, we have hundreds of staff attorneys because so much of the work we do is fighting women's cases. And those lawyers coming out of law school in Afghanistan, they learn constitutional law and they learn Sharia law. And they use a combination of both, you know, in a really genius way to get the right results for our women. And it's been such I've been so inspired by their creative and like brilliant sort of interpretations of law and talking to religious leaders and bringing those arguments into their legal art, you know, bringing it into their arguments and their fight in the court. It's been absolutely incredible to watch the lawyers at work, but it's not a new, this comment by the Taliban is nothing new. That is, the reason why we, you know, the reason why, so when we do this, the conflict resolution circle that we do, that is called a jirga. It is a very traditional Afghan form of meeting, and a mediated meeting and conflict resolution meeting. And sometimes a man, we hear in Afghanistan, a man is about to sell his daughter or force marry his daughter or something like that, something that he thinks he's doing because he's being a good Muslim. And what we do in those cases is bring, some of our lawyers themselves are religious like experts and scholars because of their education, or we bring somebody else who's an imam to talk to him and show him, quote to him from the Quran, and show him that what he's doing is the exact opposite of what the religion, you know, teaches. And actually there's nothing in the Quran that says you need to sell your daughter right now. So this is the slow, deep work that we've been doing for 20 years. And so if in this new Afghanistan, the fact that we have 20 years of a track record of doing this culturally competent work, which respects the religion, we are very well positioned to work in this new Afghanistan. It's nothing new, but they're absolutely right about interpretation. Because if the Taliban interprets, you know, Islamic law, Sharia law as what we saw before 9/11, then that's another story. So that's the misconception.
Thank you. Yeah, that's many of us, I'm sure, can resonate on. Many of us have grown up Christian and ended up in progressive Christian spaces, and that reframing of the use of the Bible is a whole thing. So,
and you might, if you research me, you might find that I'm doing the same thing in the Hindu community. So it resonates with me deeply.
Love it. Oh, we need to have you back. So much to talk about. Okay, let me open up the floor. Yeah, y'all, comments, questions, additions, clarifications you want. We always give space for this, and it always takes a minute or two.
Well, I'll go first.
Yes, Randy.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. I love the sound of your work. I think it sounds amazing. I applaud you for what you've done. It's my heart is full knowing that you're doing it. So I want to say that. A question I had, well, I won't ask all the questions because some of them may be political and you can't answer them. But like over the past 20 years of your work in Afghanistan, do you feel like you have made progress moving away from that old interpretation of Sharia law up until to a more progressive and maybe a more accurate interpretation of the Quran? What kind of progress do you think you've made within the country?
Yeah, I definitely think it, and it's not just us, it's the country itself, you know, that has made this progress. We're a large organization in my mind, but you know, in Afghanistan, we're one organization. So, but yes, my answer is yes. And just the fact that we could exist, just the fact that, you know, a women's rights organization was allowed to exist, was allowed to grow. The fact that we were in 14 provinces only because we raised that much funding. It was only a matter, there was in all of those 14 provinces, there was never a governor that said, no, we don't want you here. There was always an understanding that the work we do, is let me put it this way, 100% of our staff in Afghanistan are Muslim. And for every one of, and they're faithful, like practicing Muslims. And for every one of them, they would say that this work of taking care of little girls and women and families is an expression of their religion and not something they're doing not something to do to sort of contradict it. And that they are the inspiration for me to say, wait a minute, where are the Hindu people who are like putting their life on the line for their faith? Where are they? I mean, that it's like the biggest inspiration in my life. So I've seen over and over again this in front of my eyes, the inclusive, tolerant Islam that you wouldn't know existed if you just followed like the stereotypes of Afghan men, Muslim men as like barbaric, and in Islam as a jihadi, movement. That's not what I've seen. Now, of course, every person who's come to us has been brutalized by, somebody, and often who has in their mind this other view of Islam. So it is there, but what I have seen shining is the inclusive, alternative, positive interpretation. And we need it now. And I'm seeing articles here and there of people around, Muslims around the world, Muslim scholars even, saying to the Taliban, this is the Islam we need you to follow. And that's not my job. I'm not Muslim, but I'm glad that dialogue is happening.
Can I do a follow-up?
Yeah.
So and you may not be able to answer this, and so I get it if you say, I can't answer that, Randy, that's fine. Do you feel like a continued presence in the region by NATO or any other country's forces could have helped continue your work foundationally in the region in Afghanistan towards a better?
Can I answer it in a month?
Yes, you can.
Again, we need to have her back. So
yes. That's why I said you may not be able to answer, but I want to pose the question anyway.
But you can, off the record, you can just Google us. We've been very open with this.
I already have.
I really hope that other people, those people don't find our opinions on
that. Thank you.
Andy. Anybody else? Yeah, Malia.
It's not a question so much as just, I guess, a comment and kind of reaction to, Randy's question and your response, and just that I kept thinking, I'm like, wow, we are really more alike than we realize, or that we, because like to your point, just the characterization that Afghanistan has of being, just of how they are with women and religion and jihad and all that stuff, and just everything that you've described throughout your entire talk, about the Family Resource Center and the Children's Support Centers. I mean, those are all things, that obviously us here in the US could, benefit from, and people all over the world. And it just kind of kept coming down to me like, wow, we just really are more connected and more alike than we ever realized or acknowledged.
I completely agree. And for me, this work is a work from my faith. I mean, from the beginning, we had a book in 2003. It's called Women for Afghan Women. And the first line of the intro, I mean, it was an edited book. I'm talking about the teachings of my holy book, the Gita. I mean, for me, this is definitely, I mean, it's I don't center it because it's not about me, but I know that what motivates me is what I've learned from my parents, from my faith. And there's just the number one teaching in my faith is that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one sacred family. That's it. And if we, and in the earliest days, I was told by an Afghan woman, I was just telling somebody else about it. It was a 3-hour phone call when we were starting, in 2001, it probably happened. And this Afghan woman leader was begging me to leave her people alone, that you're not from India, you're not from Afghanistan, you're not Muslim, you don't know, you don't understand, you're gonna harm our women, please go, the women of India need you, go to your own people. And it was just such a, and she said, you know, Afghans and Pakistanis don't get along. There's like all kinds of socio-political reasons for that. And she said, look, you have a Pakistani volunteer among your group. That proves to me that you don't know what you're doing. You can't have Pakistanis in your group and help Afghans. That's not okay. And it was just this really, and I was 20 years younger. Now I think I would know better what to say to somebody like that. But back then I really didn't know what to say. And it was I was crying listening to this woman. And then when I hung up the phone, I looked at my boys. I have 3 boys, and at that point I had 2 boys, and they were 6 and 9 or 5 and 8. They were small. And I looked at them, and I didn't even have to think about it. I just knew that I am not going to raise my kids in a world where I am not allowed to do something about this issue in the world, my world, that I'm concerned about. I trust myself not to make myself, it's like your anti-racism commitment. I trust myself not to make it about me. It's about Afghanistan. It's about, the first thing we did was look for Afghan women and ask them what we should do. I trust myself, and I give myself permission to speak up about anywhere in the world that I want to. And no one can tell me that I don't have the right. I don't want to live in that world. And I'm glad, because now we have the largest women's organization for Afghanistan. We grew to be the largest Afghan women's rights organization. And I saw that woman at a conference once, and she didn't reference that moment, but she did say, "You're doing a good job."
I love it. I'm like snapping you on over here. Love it. Thanks for bringing that up, Malia, and thanks for that response. Chris Hauser, yeah.
Sunita, thank you for being with us today. It's been so wonderful. Tell me how Glennon Doyle found you, or you found Glennon Doyle, because I just saw on the Instagram account that Together Rising just made a big donation.
I see. Yeah, they did. And the way, I didn't even know who that was or who they were, but it's part of the outpouring at this time. They found us. They just found us. Yeah. We're on Obama Foundation's website, and a bunch of others, but I think that's the major. And the other one is Meghan and Harry's website.
Yes.
So we're hearing from a lot of people, and that's how that happened. We heard from some group that seems large, I'm not sure, that works in cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And our people, our team, our development team was actually getting ready to say, no, we don't have the capacity to learn about cryptocurrency. They want to do a fundraiser for us. But I quickly got in there and said, my husband and his best friend know everything there is to know about cryptocurrency. We have to put them with this group and they will figure it out, but let's not turn anybody away right now who wants to help us. So people are finding us.
Glennon Doyle is beloved by a lot of people, in this group, and it looks like they made a $250,000 donation.
It's earmarked. I have to look it up. I think it's earmarked just for work in Afghanistan. I think that's right. And so we have to wait and see. First of all, can I tell you about a big problem right now? We're raising money. I don't know what the total is right now, but we've raised more money like in a few days than we ever have, like in this kind of a way. And we have need, like the need of the money is for the folks in Afghanistan in this emergency and beyond, and hopefully, the evacuation costs. The INL, the part of the State Department that's working with us, if they send us a plane, they will cover that. But even when we spoke to the UK, there was a charge towards the plane, and I don't know how much, but planes must be very, very expensive. So we need to be spending the money that we raise on Afghanistan and some of it on the refugee resettlement work. So, and we're figuring out how to divide that. But right now in Afghanistan, the banks are closed and there's no way of getting money to Afghanistan. We operate there. So we have, and a lot of stuff that happens in Afghanistan happens in cash. So all of our offices have to keep cash and do business in cash. So we're still okay. But I don't know, like it depends when the banks open. At some point, it's not going to be okay. And so if any of you have contacts with the Obama Foundation, we're trying our best to find a contact in the Obama Foundation. They have us on their website. So I think the minute we've sent a message on their website, there's a phone number, we've left a voicemail. We don't know anybody there. And once we make contact, I know they'll want to speak to us because we were one of the 5 groups that they've listed. What we want to do is talk to the 5 organizations that they have listed, Vital Voices, CARE International, Save the Children, us, and one more that I'm forgetting, but the Women for Women International. Those are the 5 organizations. We want to talk to the 5 organizations and talk to the Obama Foundation. If we can together, that is a very powerful group of voices. If we together can advocate that there be a channel where money can get through just for humanitarian purposes, it means that so much can be done at this moment. People are hungry right now because they don't have money and they can't get money from the bank. Our own people who aren't with us among the 500, it's very hard to go and like give them something. It's like Taliban have taken over the country. Like traveling around the city is very, very dangerous. So there are people in our network who don't have money to go get bread right now. And it's not that they don't, this particular example, it's not that they don't have money, it's that they literally can't go get money because they can't get, the bank is closed. So if any of you can help us reach Obama Foundation, or even if you have contacts at any of those 5 organizations, we're connected with Women for Women International, but not the other 4. So that would be a very concrete way of helping us right now that doesn't cost money.
Great. I wrote it down. We'll send it out. We can put it in our email too, just to see. We never know who's connected to who. Okay, anybody else? Thoughts, questions? I put the org's website in the chat so you all can have that. There's an email list, obviously we can all get on. And financial donations are obviously needed and welcomed, and maybe non-earmarked would be the most helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, she's putting her email in. Anybody else have any thoughts or again, questions for Sunita? We've been so honored to have you.
You could always ask me even afterwards. I mean, I may not, I mean, in this moment, I'm really busy, but I'm good about getting back in time.
Okay, amazing.
Did Alan have a question? Is it Alan?
Yeah, Alan, unmute Alan.
My eyes are bad.
Here, I think I can unmute you. Oh no, I can't. You have to do it. There you go.
I just wanted to say that I definitely admire strong women. I really do. And as a matter of fact, recently it's been very strong women who have inspired my life, and they kind of helped me grow. So I just want to let you know that I really admire what you're doing. But what I did want to ask is, like, being in such a dangerous situation. So what's some of your like safety protocol? What's some of the stuff that you have in place to keep yourself safe and also the people that you are attending
Well, people always say, be careful. You know, if I'm going to, I haven't gone in a few years because it's been even more dangerous than usual. And if I go to Afghanistan, if any of us from America go to Afghanistan, we actually endanger everybody, not just ourselves. It's become, you know, it's been better for the American side not to go, which is really sad because I used to take donor delegations. I loved taking donor delegations to go and see the work that they support. It was my favorite thing to do. It was so moving to see, you know, I remember one donor who really had been generous, and I have pictures of her sitting in our children's support center in Mazar-e-Sharif and all the kids were like on her. I have pictures where you can barely see her face because there's like a mountain of children on her. So just to be able to, you know, facilitate that kind of, that's priceless. When you're able to support an organization and then get this human, you know, validation of who you are, and just see. So I just feel very sad. But then whenever we would go on these things, the donors and us, people would say, be careful. And how do you be careful? You're going to Afghanistan. There's no two ways about it. And once I went together with my husband, and I had close friends and family saying, no, you will not both go together because your kids cannot lose both of you. You can, and I don't know how you explain to someone that our relationship is also important to us. And for me to share this with him is something that we're going to have forever. And, you know, and I know that my organization has incredible security staff. And I'll tell you an anecdote about it. So I feel very confident that we have, the fact that we hire locally means that we hear anything like if there's a way to know what's going on, we know what's going on because of our staff. So I mean, that's probably not fails. I mean, it's probably not 100% like foolproof, but I know we're really, really well informed. So I have that confidence. And we went and we came back and here we are. I mean, but so the thing about being careful is a tough one, you know, because it's a risk. We've been operating a women's organization in Afghanistan, and women's rights are like the number one iffy, dicey issue for Muslim extremists. So, you know, I don't know what to say about that. But what I'll say is that when we were in India 3 years ago for a board retreat, and that was when it started to become too dangerous for us to go to Afghanistan. So we had a board retreat in India and we brought our senior staff from Afghanistan. We were all together in Delhi and we were having this incredible retreat. And at the end of it, I was supposed to go with a couple of new staff people to Afghanistan. We were just going to get in with our staff so we wouldn't stick out like sore thumbs, and we would just go with them and we would be able to do a trip and we hadn't been able to do in a while. And then we heard, like, our security guys, I should say, sent us a message saying, US people cannot come with our staff. You have to not come because there's a warning that there's going to be a bombing in Serena Hotel. They even knew which hotel. It's going to be in Serena Hotel. There's going to be an attack. And we were actually going to be staying in that hotel. And we didn't go. And the other part of the story that I'm not proud of is that I went to sleep that night and didn't look at my phone, and my husband thought I had gone to Afghanistan and spent like a whole, I don't know how many hours, however many hours I was sleeping, just besides himself, thinking that I had gone. And but then I woke up and I was like, what's up? That was not a good moment. But that's speaking to our, you know, our staff and how incredible. I mean, Manisha really, and Nadia are now executive director. The people they choose to staff Women for Afghan Women, number one criteria, kindness, because they're taking care of broken people, children and women. And the second is just having, you know, a real analysis, a sort of savvy analysis of how to do this work safely, whatever that means.
Great question. Thank you for that, Alan, and thank you, Sunita. Well, again, what a privilege this has been. I feel well informed. I feel motivated and inspired. I think everyone with their nods is in agreement. We've just been so honored to have you. We would love to have you back. We'd love to hear more about you and who you are and your own personal story, and not just this amazing work that you've been a part of. Also deeply moved by your faith, and would be interested to hear more about your spiritual journey too. So it's an open-ended, extended door to you at any time. So please know. And again, we appreciate, I know you said you've been doing this a lot. So thank you for taking the time. For the other 14 of us are deeply moved that you do this with us. So thanks for being.
Well, I'm really honored to be among you. You seem like such conscientious humans. I mean, you're just here in this human family trying to learn and respond and give and be in relationship. And I think if everybody did this, we would not be in the world that we're in. So please grow and spread whatever this thing is that you're doing. Yeah. And anything you can do for us, or, you know, there are so many organizations serving Afghanistan right now. Please, you know, and it's financial and it's non-financial. It's, you know, It's even just if you have, I've been saying, if your kid's teacher, if your neighbor is from Afghanistan, give them a call and say, how are you? They're not okay. You know, anything we can do. And if you have ideas for us of ways that we can, this moment's going to pass. And right now is a moment where we can raise money, raise resources, make connections. I know this is in 10 minutes, everyone's going to be thinking about something else. So if you can help us make the most of this moment, that would be great. Connections, ways to raise money, somebody who would be honored to be the founding patron of the Women for Afghan Women Virginia Community Center. Like, connect us to that person, you know, like anything. But just inviting me and listening to me itself is a way of building community, and I'm really happy that I got to be with you.
Well, hopefully this is the beginning of a lifelong friendship with us as individuals and with this community too.
Thank
So,
you.
Imaginarium will be donating from our org to your org, but also hopefully a few of us that have the means will be able to donate. But again, we'll also do everything else you're asking. And I guarantee we have a contact between us in the Obama Foundation. So
that would be amazing.
We're gonna find it for you.
Thank you.
Hey y'all, we're closing our time. I just want to tell you, coming up, the email goes out in the morning, our community email, thanks to Malia. But next month we'll participate in Nashville Pride. If you're on the ground in Nashville, we'll do it safely with masks, but we need to sign up for volunteers because we will go and literally color dust people and remind them of their inherent worth, connection, and responsibility. It's always a moving day for those of us involved and for the people that get blessed by this moment. So please sign up. You can march with us too that Saturday morning. That's the 18th and 19th. And then the next weekend, Sunday, the 26th, our first in-person gathering. Again, we want you to register. It's free, but we have the sign up that'll go out in the email tomorrow. We want people to register because it's limited space, limited capacity, so we can stay safe. We will require masks. But we can't wait to be in person. It's the celebration of our 4 years, same one vision celebration. So please sign up for that. Please plan on being there with us and spread the news. I think that's it for us. If you have a glass of wine or water, whatever, we always end our time with the toast and a dedication. And as Sunita was speaking, I was like, oh, this all feels so synchronistic that we found each other, and that even what I felt led to share as the toast is talking about hope in the midst of this moment by our dear friend, Andre Henry. He says, remember, hope isn't about what's likely, but it's about what's possible. As destructive powers try to close the door on the future we pursue, hope jams its foot in the doorframe through strategic, organized, and collective active action. A new world is possible. It doesn't have to be this way. May it be so, my friends. Cheers.
Thank you. I'll have mine right after.
Love it. Thank you all. Hey, if you want to hang for a little bit and just chat with anybody, this is for all of you. We'll leave it open for a few minutes. Otherwise, we're so honored you were here. We'll put up the recording of this in the community page. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Anita. Yay. Thank you.